Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to NBA The Brief for our weekly NBA recap. It is Monday, April 15th, and today we're talking about the last week of the NBA regular season. Let's get into it. All right, so we're going to go through the top 6 teams in each conference by seed, along with seed 7 through 10 and the play-in matchups. Also, look out for a few pods coming later this week, previewing the play-in matchups along with each round 1 series. Well, it was a crazy first week of the NBA season, even going into the final day of games on Sunday. The number 1 seed in the West was not set yet, the West play-in was not known, and seeds 2 through 7 in the East were all up for grabs. Speaking of the East, let's go there first. So the Celtics got the number 1 seed. They had an amazing season this year, and I think at this moment are the favorites to win the championship. The Knicks got the number 2 seed in the East. Knicks ending the season on a 5-game winning streak, including an overtime win against the Bulls on Sunday for their final win of the season. A lot went wrong for the Bucks in the final week of the season. We'll talk about them a little later, but they dropped to the 3 seed. Then we have Cavs at the 4 seed, Magic at 5, who really had an opportunity to jump all the way up to the 2 seed, to be honest, but they ended up having 3 straight losses, so they're at the 5. And then the Pacers at 6. For your East play-in, the 76ers are the 7th seed. They finished the season on an 8-game win streak. Joel Embiid is back and healthy. We'll see. He was out for the final game of the regular season, but it seems like it was just like a recovery protocol thing. So hopefully he's healthy this playoffs. The Heat get the 8 seed, the Bulls have the 9 seed, and the Hawks have the 10 seed. By the way, it feels like the play-in should be renamed to the Atlanta Hawks Invitational. This is their 3rd straight year in the play-in, and they've actually upset a team each year to get into the playoffs in the last 2 years. So we'll see if they do that again this year. Probably not. Moving on to the West, the Thunder, Nuggets, and Timberwolves were in a 3-way tie heading into Sunday. Pretty exciting. And the Thunder and Nuggets took care of business while the Timberwolves got torched by the Suns. The final seeding order ended up being Thunder at 1, Nuggets at 2, and Minnesota Timberwolves at 3. Then, next part, nothing new from last week. The Clippers have the 4 seed, the Mavs have the 5 seed. That's going to be a good matchup. And the Suns, with the Pelicans' loss on Sunday and by blowing out the T-Wolves, are now in the 6th seed and avoid the play-in. So, big win for the Suns. Big week for the Suns, actually. Heading into the West play-in now, the Lakers whooped the Pelicans on Sunday, which honestly has got to suck if you're a Pelicans fan, because that dropped the Pelicans from the 6th seed down to the 7th seed in the play-in, where they're going to face the 8-seeded Los Angeles Lakers, the team that just smoked them. Finally, the Kings, who had a rough week, are in the 9th seed, and the Warriors stay in the 10th seed. Warriors still pretty hot right now, by the way. I wouldn't want to play them, especially if I were the Kings, because the Warriors beat them last year in round 1 as the underdogs. We'll see if that happens this year. I just made the joke about the Hawks being in the play-in so many times. Well, the Pelicans have also been in the play-in now the last 3 years. And the Lakers have now been in the play-in 3 out of the last 4 years, which is kind of baffling. Lakers, by the way, made the playoffs in both of those previous years. Now, again, I'm going to do an in-depth analysis of the play-in and each of the round 1 matchups in future podcasts. But a few interesting stats to give y'all. Since the All-Star break, the Warriors and Lakers have had, respectively, the 5th and 6th best records in the NBA. Notable teams near the bottom of that list. The Cleveland Cavaliers have the 21st best record since the All-Star break. Not great. The LA Clippers have the 18th best record. And the Milwaukee Bucks have the 15th best record in the East since the All-Star break. They've just been mid the whole way, honestly, at least since the All-Star break. Another little interesting tidbit. The Spurs jumped the Blazers in the standings. Who saw that coming? So the Spurs ended up having a somewhat decent second half of the season. And if you recall, at one point, the Spurs, Wizards, and Pistons were just like way below everybody else in the league. They were just like terrible, terrible teams. Now the Spurs have more wins than the Pistons, the Wizards, the Blazers, and the Hornets. And for what it's worth, on that same list I was talking about of records past the All-Star break, the Spurs have only the 9th worst record post All-Star break, so not bad. Not bad, Spurs. All right, on to win of the week. There were a ton of meaningful games this past week. Honorable mentions include any of the Suns' wins this week. They had 3 big wins against teams in the West playoff picture. The Lakers beating the Pelicans on Sunday was a big win. The Spurs' crazy win against the Nuggets, which was kind of like a nice cherry on top of the Spurs season. But I'm going with the Nuggets win over the Timberwolves. Jokic went off. He had 41 points. It was basically the game that gave the Nuggets the number 2 seed in the West. and giving the Timberwolves the number 3 seed. And now if those teams match up in the second round, the Nuggets are going to have home court advantage, and they're going to have the most recent win in that matchup, which I think at least counts for something. If you're watching this video or listening to this podcast right now on YouTube, I'll link the highlights of that game at the end of this video. All right, on to worst loss. I might rebrand this segment at this point because, again, I'm chalking this up to which team had the worst week. And congratulations, in back-to-back weeks, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. They finished the season with a 2-game losing streak. All right. They dropped down to the 3 seed. But I'm not really giving it to the Bucks because of performance or they didn't play well necessarily. I'm giving it to the Bucks because Giannis injured his calf in their win over the Celtics this week. They shut him down for the final 3 games of the season. I feel like he'll probably be out like at least another week if I'm guessing. We have seen calf injuries in the past, and some of them heal up really quickly and are fine, and some of them are a lot more dangerous and need time before you come back. Biggest example being Kevin Durant's calf injury a couple years ago in the playoffs, which ended up causing his torn Achilles. So we're hoping that Giannis comes back soon, but at the same time, kind of sucks to be a Bucks fan right now. All right, on to pouring out for. Quick one here, pouring out for the Memphis Grizzlies. I feel like I've done the Grizzlies already before in a previous podcast. There's a game earlier this week. They had 13 players out due to injury. I mean, that just sucks. That's like an entire NBA team practically out due to injury. It's been a rough season for them on a lot of fronts. Hope them the best next season. All right, on to winning and losing streaks. The Sixers ended the season on an 8-game winning streak. Pretty impressive. The Knicks, as I mentioned before, ended the season on a 5-game winning streak. And OKC ended up with a 5-game win streak, which led them to getting the number 1 seed in the West. For losing streaks, the Wizards ended the season with a 6-game losing streak. What's new? The Grizzlies with a 5-game losing streak. And the Hawks with 6 games in a row lost. Not looking great going into the play-in for them. Trae Young, by the way, was out due to injury for a while, but he did play in 3 of those games that I mentioned. All right, on to surprising stat of the week. Got to show some love to Victor Wembanyama, the rookie on the Spurs, who is almost definitely going to be Rookie of the Year this year. He had 254 blocks this season. So if you compare that to Rudy Gobert, who's on a lot of people's Defensive Player of the Year vote this year, and is also well known for just getting a lot of blocks, he's had 257 blocks in the last 2 seasons. So that just shows you how much of a defensive presence Wembanyama is already as a rookie. Going to be pretty awesome to watch this guy in the next couple years. All right, now on to what no one's talking about. Can we talk for a second about how the Utah Jazz suddenly had the worst record in the league post All-Star break? We're talking about a team that was basically hovering around 500 or maybe a little bit lower than 500 up until January, February, and then it just went into a complete free fall in the standings. They went on some crazy losing streaks. I think I probably mentioned one last episode. I can't say I can point to like one specific reason why this happened, but I feel like it's a combination of a couple things. Their more solidified players missed a lot of time. Jordan Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen. Seems like they shut down John Collins for the rest of the season also. But also probably more so that Danny Ainge is the GM and he's not afraid to tank. I'm going to guess that he made the call to go into tank mode and told Will Hardy, like, yo, play some of the young guys more. Guys like Keontae George, Walker Kessler, Johnny Juzang. So good tanking by the Jazz. Unfortunately, even after all of that, they're still only the 8th worst team in the league. So was it worth it? I mean, maybe it was. All right, on to plus bet of the week. Rough one last week. All right. Now, to be fair, I was actually right about the Bucks beating the Celtics, but I took the over in that game also as a part of the parlay, and the game went way under. So my bad on that. We're now down 500 units or $5, but we're back with a new $5 bet this week. And this time, I'm sticking with a little bit risky pick here, but hear me out. I'm taking the Warriors to make the playoffs, which at the time I'm making this bet is plus 330. So I mentioned before the Warriors had the 5th best record in the West post All-Star break. I feel like Steph Curry is still going to be the best player in any of these play-in games that they play. And look, I don't think the NBA is necessarily rigged at all. I'm not saying that. But I think if you gave Adam Silver some truth serum and asked him which of the 4 play-in teams he wants to see in the playoffs between the Pelicans, Lakers, Kings, and Warriors, I'm guessing he's going to say the Lakers and the Warriors for ratings purposes. So I'm putting $5 on the Warriors to make the playoffs to win $21.50. And finally, big game this week. The play-in games are this week on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I encourage everyone to watch all of them. If I had to choose one to watch, I'm looking at the Wednesday night game on ESPN, Heat versus Sixers. I think we're pretty lucky to be getting this random, semi-meaningless matchup. I think it's going to be pretty fun. All right, that's it for the pod. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed watching the regular season this season in the NBA, and I'm hyped for the playoffs. Let's get hyped, y'all. See ya.